You, Congressman, I mean, you were an admiral. You were in a position where you could probably make some speeches that could have probably angered the president, your commander-in-chief, I should say. Should the general have given a speech like the one he gave last week in London?
I don't think it was wrong for the general to speak in broad terms, and I've read his speech. And while he may have been a bit over the line, I think what I learned in the military when I was dealing with my commanders, and when I was Director of Defense Policy and in deliberations with the Commander-in-Chief, President Clinton, is that those sensitive moments, the chain of command, to be able to give your advice privately, not to critique those on the other side publicly, is the right way to do things. There's not a question that the general should speak candidly when he's asked his opinion as he comes before Congress or at other moments. And if he's unhappy, he can always depart. But I do believe it's such an important decision moment that there shouldn't even be the perception that he's outside trying to move the debate. And again, I want to stress, if he was over the line, it was just by a bit.
But let me ask you a question. As a military guy, don't you get frustrated sometimes when you see all these politicians putting their heads together, trying to come up with an important decision like this by committee, when you're probably sitting there saying, you know, I know more in one finger about war and strategy than these guys know in a lifetime?
You know, why one might feel that way, thank goodness that we have a Constitution that places civilians in control of the military. I was a registered independent because I wanted to show that we should be nonpartisan. Now, I honestly believe, as messy as it is, that due respect for civilian leadership has to be shown. And while we go outside, we can sway a debate. I don't think that's correct.
Well, you know, and I think I think our viewers would. Let me put it in a football analogy and throw it back to you, David. If you were to ask Brett Favre what he wants to do, if the coach came and said, what do you want to do today, Brett? I almost can guarantee you that he would not say, I want to hand the ball off 100 times. He's going to say, I want to sling it. I want to throw. I want to chuck the pill. If you ask a general or a fighting man what he wants to do, he's not going to back down. He's going to say, I want to fight. So the fact that a general is saying, we ought to go in there, give me a bunch of guys, and let's beat the heck out of them, really shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody.
Well, military leaders aren't always correct, and they don't always advocate the most aggressive policy. I mean, after all, President Bush really had to convince his own Joint Chiefs of Staff during the surge in Iraq that putting more troops into Iraq was the thing to do.
That's a good point.
So sometimes it works both ways. But I think the important thing to focus on as far as General McChrystal goes is the actual comments that he made. He said any policy change that doesn't leave Afghanistan, which neighbors nuclear-powered Pakistan, in a long-term stable position is probably a short strategy. And, you know, that's the real concern. Is this policy that we're talking about going to be a matter of political triangulation, where you don't want to go and please the left, but you also don't want to please the right, so you pick something down the middle that may not be the best military.
But there's something even more fundamental about your story that interested me, and I think Americans deserve an answer to this. And if you got it, just share with us what your sources say, and then I'll toss it by the congressman/admiral. Is there a fundamental problem, conflict, call it what you will, between this president and his top military brass at this point in time? How would you characterize it?
Well, I would say that it's an uneasy relationship, that they have different goals and different concerns. I wouldn't say that it's gone so far as to be, you know, a difficult relationship or something that has to lead to some sort of a schism.
It's not Truman MacArthur, in other words.
No, way too early to say that.
What do you think, Admiral? What's this thing going to result in? And have you seen situations like this? Does good come out of them or bad come out of them? After all, just because two guys disagree doesn't mean it's not going to end up on good terms.
No. Any military commander worth his salt will speak candidly. And at times, I'm not sure that happened over the last 8 years. But that said, remember, we want to listen to what General McChrystal has to say about Afghanistan and that area. But listen, the president has to take into it the whole cloth of our national security.
The generals
impact in the region.
So the generals
following that particular strategy.
I just got a thought, and I'm going to just throw it out there because I think I heard you say that. Are we in agreement that a general's comments or opinion should not be, or an admiral's, no disrespect, should not be the end all? Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
remember, General McChrystal is charged with one thing: give me military advice. But national security relies upon diplomacy, our economic strength, our relations with other nations. So what we're trying to do here is the president has to decide if we pursue this strategy in Afghanistan. Not militarily is his real decision being made upon. What's the impact upon our overall national security? Remember, we have an army today that is in such a low state of readiness, it cannot respond with an army unit ready to defend the 27,000 troops sitting in South Korea. He's got to take into account how long will this strategy take? Will it impact our relationships with Pakistan and India?
Yeah.
No. There's a different set of deliberations that the president, as commander-in-chief, must take into account.
No, you're right. There's military, there's geopolitics, there's geography. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there. David Patton with Newsmax. We'll get you back. Good reporting, man. Appreciate it. And Congressman Joe Sestak, as usual. Good to see you both. Likewise.